Hey there, here's a quick note before we begin. You can support the podcast by downloading, sharing, or checking with my favorite hiking gear at justhike.com. Let's hit the trail. Our next guest on the Just Hyke podcast is Deborah Peddle-Han, and she is an award-winning fitness and wellness expert with almost 2 decades of experience, backpacking coach, and hiking advocate. She is the founder of Journey to Wellness and Healthy Hiking and is the creator of the Empowered Backpack online course. She helps women go from unsure to trail ready. Based in Nova Scotia, Canada, Deborah supports midlife women in rebuilding strength, confidence, and trust in their bodies, both in everyday life and on the trail. After discovering a love for backpacking in her mid-40s, at a time when some felt she might be too old to start, Deborah understands firsthand how intimidating hiking and overnight adventures can really feel, especially for women who don't see themselves reflected in outdoor spaces. Her work blends practical fitness, injury prevention, mindset, and real-world hiking education, always delivered with humor, honesty, and a no-nonsense approach. Deborah's mission is simple: to help women move well, feel strong, and step into nature at their own pace without perfection, pressure, or... You can follow Deb's fitness and nutrition advice on Instagram at Journey to Wellness or Healthy Hiking for her hiking adventures. To work with Deborah for either fitness, wellness, nutrition, or hiking, please visit journeytowellness.ca. I came across you on, I think it was probably Instagram. The one that struck me the most was there was a video of you deciding how to get down and kind of a joke of, the need.
Okay, as a creator, you probably know you put so much thought into so many things that you do. Like,
yes,
that was something that was happening on the trail, and I made a joke because I'm like, here I go again, trying to decide which leg to put down. And I went, somebody record that for me. And I put it up. That has almost 750,000 views.
Oh, that's so exciting.
That has more likes and comments on it than what I normally get in views on some of my other stuff. So it was just, and it was like the dumbest little, let's just throw that up there, not thinking that it was anything except for just a little bit of fun. And right. It was like, are you kidding me? That is what goes viral? Are you kidding me? I've been in the fitness and wellness industry for almost 2 decades. I can't believe I'm saying that, but almost 20 years. And I work primarily with midlife women, and I have a studio in my home in Nova Scotia. I started off as just taking personal training clients in my home. I had 1 child. Since then, I've had 2 more. So I have 3 children. And it was always something that I just really enjoyed. And then in 2020, when everything got shut down, in Nova Scotia, we had very strict shutdowns. And I was lumped in with the gyms. Even though I was a private studio, I was lumped in with the gyms where I was the first to close and the last to open every single time. Within a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, what do people need right now? They need exercise. They need something that they have control over. What are they going to do? And I started offering free virtual fitness classes. I was like, what's this Zoom thing that everybody keeps talking about? Did a deep dive into that, started offering some free sessions. And then, of course, things started to go a lot longer than they had originally anticipated. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, maybe it's time to, I don't like using the word pivot too much because it's been overused, but how can I change things up and make this into part of my business? And I never look back. It's been a whirlwind. I have loved every moment of it. I run a virtual fit camp now that's almost 6 years strong now, and teaching virtual fitness classes. I do fun challenges, nutrition, wellness, all that sort of thing. And I wasn't always a hiker. My parents used to backpack when I was a teenager, and I thought they were absolutely crazy. What do you mean you just walk with everything on your back? And they're tickled pink now that I actually backpack. But I was hiking, and I was just discovering these places in Nova Scotia because we weren't really allowed to move too much within the provinces at that time in 2020. And it was I want to see more. What more is out there? And then I would see something and go, oh, but I want to do more than that. And I realized, okay, if I want to do that, I have to stay overnight. I have to backpack. I have to bring things with me. And it was so intimidating at first that I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And of course, there wasn't a whole lot to do at the time. So I was on YouTube and I was following every single backpacker and hiking influencer out there, listening to all the things, thinking about gear, everything that I could. And I just started to think, I think I might want to do this. And it just started to develop. And I took my very first overnight hike. I actually found somebody on a social media group here in Nova Scotia. And we kind of had a few mutual friends. So I knew they were a real person, and I
Right.
reached out to them, and it's kind of, I really want to do this. I've camped when I was young. I was a Girl Guide. I did all the things, but I've never really done this backpacking, and I would love some help, just a one-nighter, just to get that first under my, you can only watch so many videos and do so much, research when you just have to
Yes,
finally just go
you're
do it.
right.
And she said yes, and I was surprised, and we're both still alive, so that means we were safe. And I fell in love with it. I went, oh, I get it. I get the attraction to this now, the silence, the getting away from it, the disconnecting, the challenge, the physical challenge of doing stuff. Of course, as a personal trainer, I love a good challenge. And there was just something about it. And so I did a few one nights, and then it turned into weekends. And then I went, but I want to do more and more. And I started to find the trails all over Eastern Canada that I can do. Gone to the Rockies. I've gone down into Maine, did Mount Kata. And it just, really started to blossom from there. And that's why I started doing the presentations, and I created the Empower Backpacker course. And it just was a really nice fit between the fitness and the hiking. And that's where healthy hiking came into play. It was just a perfect fit.
Tell me about the courses that you have. Where can people find the information?
So you can find me mostly online, of course. I share a lot through Healthy Hiking and Journey to Wellness. They're two separate companies that I have. Journey to Wellness is more of the fitness, the nutrition, wellness, general wellness. And that one is the journeytowellness.ca Instagram. That's the best place to find me. And the two is the digit two. So journeytowellness.ca. And then more of my hiking adventures where I just get a little bit on the funny side. I try to keep it really lighthearted, but then I offer tips. We talk about strength training for nutrition, that sort of thing. Strength training for hiking, nutrition for hiking. And that's more on my healthyhiking.ca Instagram. So that's two separate places. And if anybody is in Nova Scotia, then it's usually MEC, which is Mountain Equipment Company. It's very similar to the REI in the United States. And also Hike Nova Scotia. We have a Nova Scotia hiking summit every year. So I've been a presenter there for the last couple of years. And yeah, and a lot of companies will call me and just ask me to do a one-off presentation for them for either their employees, whether it's wellness, whether it's adventure. That's where I am somewhere.
Yeah. Fun. I'm curious about this Hike Nova Scotia summit. So they do like topics and events, and do they also lead hikes during the summit? Is it in Halifax?
Halifax is our capital here in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So Hike Nova Scotia hosts the Nova Scotia Hiking Summit. They choose a different area of the province every year, which is really nice because you get to try a lot of different places. There are workshops. I host a couple myself. There are other presenters that will host them. We have meals and lots of topics that we discuss. And then there are hikes throughout the day, usually 2 to 3 hikes every day. And it's done in groups. So you could choose this hike out of this one or this one. So you get to try a variety of hikes. And it's just a wonderful weekend. You get together with a lot of like-minded people, all ages from 20s to 80s. It's a very nice mix, and it's very inspiring because you get to see some people. I'm 52, and to be able to see people that are out there hiking in their 60s, 70s, late 70s, and they're quick and they're strong. And I go, okay, that's a life goal. That is my life goal right there. So it's wonderful. So it's all through Hike Nova Scotia.
Very neat. I'm going to have to look that one up for sure. So what wellness or fitness myths make you laugh or roll your eyes? Did anything come to mind when I proposed that question for you? Fitness or wellness myth?
I was going to say fitness and wellness. There's a whole lot of myths out there.
There is. No pain, no gain is the first one.
Right. Yeah. Like if it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right. That's the biggest one for me as an advocate for midlife women. It's so important that we take care of our body. We listen to our body. We go at a pace that works for us because we don't recover like we did in our 20s. And there has been so much science in the last 5 to 10 years, how a lot of that added stress is actually not good for us. So I really, that no pain, no gain is ridiculous. And I think a really good one that I can tie both fitness and hiking together is that people feel they have to be fit before they start.
Ha, yes.
I can't do your class because I don't think I'm strong enough, or I'm not going to fit in, or I can't go do that hike because I'm not strong enough to do a hike. Hire a personal trainer. And I really try to say, no, let's flip that. It's you do these things to get stronger, to get healthier. You just find a level, whether it's a class, whether it's a trainer, whether it's a trail, whatever that might happen to be, that fits you now. So you start where you are, you come as you are, you start where you are, and then you grow from there. You don't have to be fit to start. That is probably the biggest myth that really I try to stress to people, like, no, you can do this. You don't have to be. And I think what happens a lot of times is what we see in our society, whether it's social media, whether it's TV shows, whether it's YouTubers that are out hiking, or a lot of these fitness ones, is that we think that the high level and what we see for that 30 seconds on an Instagram reel is real life. And we have to realize that no, fitness doesn't mean hiking for 6 months with nothing but a tarp. That's not what it has to look like. Or some of these extreme fitness classes, that's not what it has to be. It's finding something that fits your lifestyle, your goals, and really making that work for you. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I like how you said that. It really reminds me of, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with another lady, and a lot of times we think that people who we see who are successful, or people who we see like we look up to, we think that they were always there, right? We put them on this pedestal and we think that they were always there. But no, they had to start somewhere too. They had to take that first step onto the trail. They had to pick up that first backpack. They didn't do it from birth, right? They had to learn somewhere. And everybody has their own growth and their own journey, and it just takes one step at a time, little baby steps, and we all get to where we want to go.
That's why my main company is called Journey to Wellness.
There you go.
Because it is so different for every person. What wellness meant to me in my 20s is very different than what wellness means to me in my 50s, and will probably be very different than what it'll mean to me in my 80s. It is a journey, and we can have an amazing journey. It's not just about adding years to your life. I am a firm believer it's about adding life to your years.
Nice. Now, how does movement and hiking support wellness in real life?
I think the biggest thing is hiking and any sort of fitness that works for you, as we mentioned. It's about building strength and consistency and energy and confidence without feeling like punishment. That's been a big thing where we talked about the no pain, no gain. It doesn't have to be punishment. We don't exercise to punish ourselves. And as long as we remember that, it's okay, I need to find something enjoyable with this. The goal is to get stronger. The goal is to have more energy. The goal is to have confidence. Because if you have those three things, strength, energy, confidence, there's nothing that can stop you. The sky's the limit.
Nice. So tell me, let's move on to some of your favorite hikes close to home, and why do you love them? So you're in Nova Scotia. Just to explain a little bit of demographics for people, Nova Scotia is one of the eastern provinces of Canada, and it is located, let's say, north of Maine.
Yes, a little bit northeast of Maine. So that encompasses New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland. So that is our 4 eastern provinces, and I love all 4 of them. They are very coastal. They're maritime weather, very much maritime. So sometimes very similar to if you're on the coast of Maine, especially more northern Maine, the weather is very similar there. Obviously, we're on the Atlantic Ocean, so we have that beauty there. And the really nice thing about Nova Scotia and New Brunswick that touch each other is we have the Bay of Fundy in between us as well. And Bay of Fundy is famous. It's the highest tides in the world. Tides can rise and lower about 53 feet twice a day.
That's
if you, and I recommend everybody Google it. Watch the Fundy tides, Bay of Fundy tides, and you will see boats sitting on the ocean floor, and then the tide comes in and the boats lift. It is unbelievable. And two of my favorite hikes are really close to the Bay of Fundy, and it's just absolutely spectacular. The great thing about this is that everywhere you go, you're within a 30 to 45-minute drive of the ocean everywhere. Maybe with the exception of central Newfoundland, because that's actually quite a big province. It doesn't look like it sometimes, people don't think it is, but it is actually quite big. But there's ocean everywhere, and we have a lot of coastal hikes, which are beautiful. So in Nova Scotia, and if you don't mind, I'd love to just say each province, especially the three. PEI, Prince Edward Island is a little smaller. There's not really a whole lot there. They do have a walk around the island where you could actually hike the entire circumference of the island. It's quite spectacular. I haven't done it yet. I've just done bits and pieces of it, but that is something that's definitely on the bucket list.
Approximately how long is the hike around the island?
So the island walk is about 707 kilometers. So that's the entire circumference of the island. So you would go all the way around. So that's 435 miles.
Okay.
And just to give an idea, and most people say they take about 30 to 32 days to do the whole thing, depending on obviously how fast you go. Some people cycle it. You can cycle it because it is a lot of flat trails, roadway, that sort of thing. It's not as many coastal or backcountry trails like you would have in the other provinces that I'm going to share. So I just wanted to share that about Prince Edward Island. If anyone's interested, they do have that really cool walk around the island. So for where I'm living in Nova Scotia, two of my favorite, the first one is Cape Chignecto. And if anybody wants the spelling of anything or would like some information or links, just reach out to me. I can definitely share that information. So Coastal Loop, that is a 53-kilometer loop right on the Bay of Fundy. You're walking along the cliffs of the Bay of Fundy. It is absolutely beautiful. I do that hike every single year. Without fail. I've done 6 of them now, and I plan on continuing until I can't do it anymore physically. So that is one of my favorite. And it is a provincial park. It's part of the Nova Scotia provincial parks. And there are other really beautiful trails. If you've ever heard of Cape Breton Island, it's a really stunning part of Nova Scotia. It's an island of itself with a causeway that's connected. And the Cape Breton Highlands. So that's a national park. Unbelievably beautiful there. There is a company there, an adventure company that takes a lot of people. If somebody's going there and they're not quite sure, which trails I should do, they do both day guides and also some overnight backpacking trips, which I just did in October actually. And that company is called Live Life Intense. So INTENTS, which I thought was really cute. Lee is the owner there, and he is a phenomenal guide, and he'll take a lot of people around the Cape Breton Highlands. Definitely someone, if anybody is looking to tour that area, to reach out to him. He's definitely helpful. So that's the two big ones of the longer ones. Nova Scotia is full. I'm talking thousands of small day hikes, whether they're coastal or inland. We have a couple of national parks here, like I mentioned, the Cape Breton Highlands. We also have one that's called Kejimkujik. Don't ask me to spell that right now. We call it Keji. We call it Keji. And some really beautiful canoeing, backcountry trails. There's old wardens' cabins that you can hike to if you kind of know where they are. That's one of, those provincial secrets where you kind of have to know somebody who knows where they are type. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my two, like I said, Cape Chignecto I do every year. New Brunswick, that's connected. It feels a little bit more connected to Quebec and Maine. That's where we would enter Maine, is through New Brunswick. That is on the northern side of the Bay of Fundy. We have the Fundy Footpath. So that is a 64-kilometer hike. Very strenuous. They call it the hardest hike in the Maritimes, and I would have to agree. Okay. It's pretty tough. And we also have another one called the Nepesiquit Mi'kmaq Trail. So it follows the old travel route for the local indigenous Mi'kmaq, from the shores of the ocean to inland when they would travel through it, when they would migrate with the seasons. And that trail follows that system, and it's very, very beautiful. So it follows the Nepesiquit River the entire time. You're following a beautiful river. Newfoundland has the East Coast Trail, which is a 336-kilometer hike that's on the easternmost part of North America. So I don't know if you've heard of Cape Spear. That is the easternmost point in North America. There's a beautiful lighthouse there. It's a national park, and that is part of the trail. So 336 kilometers. It goes through all the little towns and all the little fishing villages, that sort of thing. But then you're in the wilderness again, and then you'll pop out to another little town. That's a beautiful hike. That one would take, I did about 230 kilometers of it in 14 days. If I ever went back to try it again to do the whole thing, I would give myself like 21 days just so I can enjoy stopping in the town, talking to people, trying out some of the local restaurants, little fish and chip places. It's really quite beautiful. The East Coast Trail is a really beautiful one. And then also Rossmore National Park, which is on the western coast of Newfoundland. So Newfoundland is the island. So even though it's the east coast of Canada, it's on the west coast of Newfoundland, of the province.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that is a national park. For those people that don't know, the either Appalachian or Appalachian, however you pronounce it, that trail goes right through New Brunswick, Nova Scotia into Newfoundland. And actually the IAT, the International Appalachian Trail, goes right over into Europe.
Wow, really?
So in Ireland, so you have this. So a lot of these hikes that I'm talking about, this is all still part of Appalachia. So it's all part of it. So if you've hiked the Appalachians in Maine, you pretty much know what it would look like here, except we have more coastal. But Rossmore National Park is cliffs, and it's huge fjords with absolutely breathtaking, they call it Western Brook Pond. You would think you're on the ocean, but it's a pond, believe it or not. Wow. And it's because it was formed by glaciers receding. So this fjord was developed, and you can walk up along top of the fjords. You can do day hikes. You can do a very, very challenging, very remote backcountry. If you're comfortable with navigation, that would be one that you do. I could go on forever about these because you just feel like whenever you're walking on some of these trails, you always feel like you're walking in a 2-page spread of National Geographic.
Wow.
365. You're just looking, going, how am I here? How does this even exist? And how many people will never, ever get to see it with their own eyes?
Magic. Now,
it really is.
How well marked are some of these trails? Like, are they fairly easy to navigate, or do you recommend, well, we always recommend, downloading maps and things like that so that you have your trail navigation. But some trails are very easy to navigate and they're easy to see the next marker. And then other trails are a little more difficult. So what is your opinion as to what these trails are like?
First, I don't care how well marked a trail is, I tell people, download the map. If you have a printable one, take one. If there's a map at the trailhead, take a picture of it with your phone. I always recommend that, no matter how well marked a trail is. That being said, all of them, with the exception of Rossmore, are very well marked. And very well traveled. Cape Chignecto is in a provincial park. That one is very, very well marked with fantastic markings, trail markers. Fundy Footpath, Nepesaquit, East Coast Trail, they are all very defined. All of those hikes as well, with the exception of Rossmore, they do have either map books, little tiny books that fit in your pocket, which is great, nice. Or some waterproof ones. The East Coast Trail, it was like a little binder of maps. So because it was 336 kilometers and I broke it up for so many days, I would take, okay, here's my 6 or 7 days worth of maps. Here's another 6 or 7 days worth of maps. They're very, very well done. Rossmore is very remote, very much a unmarked trail. You need to have navigation skills. I would actually recommend taking a map and compass course as a backup just to have that. There is no cell service on that one. It's unbelievably remote. I hiked it this past summer, and I will be the first to admit that I got temporarily misplaced for about 3 hours, which was,
that happened. Yeah.
It was very frustrating where this is where the trail's supposed to be. Where is it? And it was there, but you had to push through a lot of trees, a lot of bush, what we call tuckermore in Newfoundland, which is very low-lying spruce because they're up on the mountains and the ocean wind blows them. So it kind of blows the spruce sideways. Very, very challenging to get through. So Yikes. The trail was there. We just couldn't see it. That one, you have to do an orientation beforehand. They recommend having navigation. They recommend having paper maps, knowing how to use a compass. if you do not have your own GPS device, emergency beacon, they will loan one to you. Just because that's how important that is when you're in that backcountry.
Now, so where I live, I'm near Houston, and we're very flat. We're right around maybe 50 feet above elevation. Like, we're just very flat, very low. Tell me, what is the elevation and maybe some of the gains and losses? So, for example, if you go out on a hike, like I went into Mexico just this last week, and I went on a hike into the mountains there. And when I looked at my data, like from my Apple Watch, it said I did 72 flights of stairs. And normally in my normal day around here, I might do 5 flights of stairs, right? It's just very, very different. We have no hills. It's very flat around here, where you go somewhere else and it's very hilly, very mountainous. So just to get an idea, how much elevation gain loss could you expect in some of the hikes where you're talking about?
So because we are part of the Appalachian Mountain Range, we are going to have definitely more hills than what you're used to, but the hills are not like the Rocky Mountains, where you have, 7,000 and 8,000 feet elevation, where very, very high elevation. Ours, and I'm going to do the math because everything's in meters here. We do everything metric here. So I want to be able to help your listeners for sure. So, yes, exactly. So for the ones like Cape Chignecto Fundy footpath, where you're going along the Bay of Fundy, a lot of those are about 250 meters above sea level. So 250 feet. So that's about 820 feet.
Okay.
Above sea level. In the Gross Mourne and parts of the East Coast Trail, definitely Gross Mourne, I will say for sure. The highest point that I hit this last summer was about 750 meters. Might have been a little less than that. 52 feet. Doing the math.
Thank you.
Of course, I do this a lot. I'm constantly doing this. So that's about 2,500 feet.
Okay. What do you think the highest elevation is in the Maritime provinces?
That would be Mount Carlton.
Okay.
That is in New Brunswick. It is the highest peak in the Maritimes, not the highest peak in Newfoundland. So it's kind of weird here, even though Newfoundland is it is maritime in its weather. It is not considered part of the Canadian Maritimes. That's just the 3 provinces, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI. But it is part of the Atlantic provinces. So Mount Carlton, I will tell you right now. I have a picture of it somewhere because I wanted to take it when I hiked it. And that's one you can do in a day hike, is walk to the highest peak in the Maritimes. So that is 820 meters, which is 2,690 feet.
Oh, wow.
No, we're not like peaks of the Rockies. And a lot of our mountains are like the Appalachia Mountains, where they're a little bit smoother because they're older. Okay. That's the difference between the Rocky Mountains. They're very jagged. They're considered like baby mountains, even though they're much bigger. They're considered much younger than ones like the Appalachia, where they're older. So that's why they're worn down a little bit more. We have in Newfoundland, it's called the tablelands, where you're actually walking and it's just flat.
Wow. Interesting.
And that's really cool. When you climb 700 meters, or what did I say it was, 12 something feet, and then you just walk on flat for days, and you're on that elevation, and there's lakes, and it's really cool, really amazing.
So would you can you drive to each of the Maritime provinces? Like, are they connected by ferry or bridge, or do you have to fly?
Drive. So if you're coming from the US,
Boston or something.
You would go through usually New Brunswick or Quebec. But you can come up, if you're like, say, Windsor in Michigan, you can come up through Ontario, come across. But coming up through Maine into New Brunswick, you're right into the Maritime provinces. And you can access all Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island by driving. Prince Edward Island has what's called the Confederation Bridge, a very long bridge that connects the island to New Brunswick. So you can drive to all those places. Cape Breton Island, even though it is an island, it is connected by a causeway, so you can drive there no problem. The only province that you would have to get a ferry or fly is Newfoundland. So you would drive to one of the more eastern points of Nova Scotia called North Sydney, and you would get the Marine Atlantic Ferry, and you could cross either to Port aux Basques, Newfoundland, which is about a 7-hour ferry ride, or you can go further, I think it's a 12 or 14-hour ferry ride to Argentia, Newfoundland. That's closer to St. John's, which is the capital of Newfoundland. That's the bigger bustling city. And that is where the East Coast Trail is. So that's right out on the Atlantic. So you would have to get a ferry to either one of those. A lot of people, when they come up and they do that, if anyone's ever interested in just touring Newfoundland, say they have an RV, what a lot of people will do in the summertime is they will get on the ferry and go to Argentia, get off, and then drive back westward across the island and visit all the places along the way, and then get on in Port aux Basques and then drive back. Quite beautiful. Yeah.
Very nice. Now, what's the best time of year? Like originally I'm from Alberta, Canada, and people ask me when's the best time of year, and I tell them July.
Yes.
It's like,
well, we're northern, right? Canada, you wouldn't believe it right now because it's been raining here for the last 3 days. Nova Scotia's very maritime weather. It can either be 6 feet of snow or 50 millimeters of rain. We get a lot of the hurricanes that come up from the Atlantic. You'll hear it a lot of times, they call them the spaghetti models, where is it going to hit New York? Is it going to hit Maine? And if it takes a turn, then usually it's coming right for us. So we still have a lot of very maritime coastal weather. If you love winter activities, New Brunswick and Newfoundland are both fantastic for winter activities like snowmobiling and snowshoeing and winter camping and that sort of thing. They're great. Nova Scotia is tricky because, like I said, it could be snow, it could be rain. When we see the forecast and it's hovering around, I'm going to go Celsius again, I'm sorry. It's hovering right around that 5 degrees to -5. We go, okay, we don't know what we're getting. We will have the shovels ready, but then we'll have the rain boots ready at the same time because we don't know. Usually April through June, it's very rainy, not a time, and a lot of black flies, a lot of bugs. It's not pleasant. I start hiking usually around what we call the May long weekend.
I think that's the third weekend in May. Yeah.
That's usually when all of the parks open up, the trails open up for reservations, all that. And that's usually when I start hiking. Last year, I hiked the Fundy footpath on the May long weekend. That's what we call it, the May long weekend, Victoria. On Friday, I was in shorts and a tank top, and it was warm. And we were like, oh my goodness, we could almost, sit in a river. It's so warm. And by Monday, when we were finishing, it was 2 degrees and the wind was coming off the Bay of Fundy, off the water. And it was so cold, I could not put enough layers on. And it was just such a bizarre weekend. So that, in a nutshell, that weekend, we had everything from sun to rain to snow to the works in one weekend. That pretty much sums up spring in Nova Scotia for sure.
I understand.
Once July and August, and even September, you get the colder nights, so you have to be a little bit more prepared. The nights get very cool and your days are quite short. You're starting to head out of the trail because it's getting dark quite early. And that's the only thing that holds you back in September. But daytime, fall hiking, the fall hiking here with the colors, it is stunning. So Cape Breton, Newfoundland, parts of inland, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, the colors of the trees would just blow your mind. You get out and you look over, especially if you're up on a mountain, and you can look and just see yellow, orange, reds as far as the eye can see. It's beautiful. So I like hiking in the fall, but not necessarily backpacking where I'm spending a lot of time cold in my tent. But July and August, fantastic. You're going to get days where it's raining and you're going to get days when it's hot and there might be a heat wave, and you just never know. You have to plan for everything, but it's that if you're going to come backpacking and hiking, July, August, September for sure.
Gotcha. Now, what about, so you mentioned reservations. Do you need reservations to hike some of these trails, or can you just show up?
For some of them, yes. So Fundy footpath, you just need to have a pass for the trail itself. You don't have to book ahead of time or anything like that. You just have to make sure you go to the visitor center. It is a national park. Fundy National Park. You just have to go there because there's park passes. You have to register so that they know you're on the trail. That's the great thing about the national parks and the provincial parks. Even though it's a little bit of a nuisance having to book and set your time and that sort of thing, it's nice to know somebody is very well aware where you are, when you start, and when you're supposed to leave, just in case something happens. Fundy and the Nepesaquit, you just need to register and let them know you're on the trail. The East Coast Trail in Newfoundland, It's a lot of different trails that all of these communities used to have, and then they developed this trail system so they connect them all. You can hike that, take as long as you want, get on and off wherever you want. It doesn't matter, and there's not really anybody checking. The Chignecto, because it is a provincial park, and there's designated camping on that one. So you would have to book, and you also have to book your camping spots. So you have to be a little bit more diligent and do some research there as to how long it would take you to hike in between campsites so that you can kind of set yourself up so that you book the campsites that you need, and you make sure that that's really important to do that. And the Cape Breton Highlands, there's a mix. Some of them you can just hike wherever you want, and then some of them you have to book because it is a national park.
Do your research, right? Do your research.
Yes, reach out to me. I have a lot of that information. I actually have a couple of workshops on my website as well. If you're looking to hike one of those, there's a couple of workshops there that you can download and watch. And I give all the ins and outs and the websites and the links and who to call and how to get help and that sort of thing.
Very nice. Now, are all of your workshops, do you have to pay for them, or do you have some that are free?
Both. The ones on my website, it's just a small fee to download and you get the information as well. The ones I do at MEC or at the stores or with Hike Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Hiking Summit, I do those complimentary just because I love these organizations so much, and it's a nice way to get out and meet people. And yes, I mean, I run a business, but my true goal is just inspire people to feel confident enough to get out there. And if I do that, when somebody messages me and go, I just did this hike, I didn't think I could do it, and I did it because I went to one of your workshops, nothing makes me happier. Absolutely nothing makes me happier than knowing that somebody who wouldn't normally do it decided to do it because of something I said or did. It can change lives. As you know, hiking can change your life.
Hiking can definitely change your life. What encouragement would you give to women who want to hike but feel intimidated or out of shape?
It's, you know what,
answer.
you've just got to start.
Yes.
You've just got to start and start small. You know, maybe find a community. Like I said, at Hike Nova Scotia, they do walking groups. So you could even just start with some very short trail walks and hikes, meet some people, like-minded people. Because sometimes it's hard when you start to love something and everyone around you is like, no. And I get that sometimes when I ask people like, let me know if you ever want to go for a hike. And they go, oh no, I could never do your hikes. And I stress to them, I don't do those every weekend. I'm 52 years old. I physically can't do those kind every weekend. Sometimes when I do those 10, 14-day hikes, I need a month to recover. So it's just start small, find some local hikes, use your All Trails apps or any of the apps for the trails. Find something that's suitable for you, that's in your own backyard. I was shocked when I first started looking at All Trails to find out what is actually around me, to know, oh, there's so much to do. And I think it's important to know that even though we see a lot of the extremes, right? Because that's what people post, that's what people share. I think pacing yourself is actually a skill. A lot of people think that, in the same thing with my fitness business, a lot of people say, oh, I had to do the variations or I had to do the modifications. People are like, oh, I'm one of the slower ones on the trail. I think that's a skill and not a weakness.
Yes,
because when you have enough awareness about your body that if I do that, I may hurt myself. Or if I do, that's going to take me a long time to recover and I'm not going to enjoy myself or I'm not going to feel well. I think having that much self-awareness that I like to walk a little bit slower. Take some pictures. If you need an excuse, stop and take pictures. Stop and have a snack. Make sure you're fueling yourself. I really think that is more important than how fast you can do or even finishing the hike. If you feel that if I push myself any further, I'm going to hurt myself and I'm going to have to be carried out of here, I think it's more important to just say, I think I'm done. That's enough for now. Same thing with fitness. That's enough for now. I think I'm good. And I think that having that skill is what's going to keep us healthy and active and on the trail a lot longer.
I love what you said there. And I think that's very important. And it's not a weakness, right? Like some people would look down on themselves and say, oh, what's wrong with me? I can't do that. But there's nothing wrong with you. Everybody's pace is their own. And you can't compete against the 6-foot tall person who has legs all the way up to your armpits. You're just not the same pace and you're just not built the same way. I love how you said that. Just having that understanding that it's okay to go your pace and it is a skill to know and understand when it's time to take a break. Sometimes
Exactly.
it's
I
just time to take a break.
yes, exactly. And that is okay. That's really important.
Yes.
The hike that I did in Cape Breton, I actually have a short little clip on my social media on healthyhiking.ca. And it was this log, and I was hiking with four other people, and they were all like, the shortest person was 5'8", and I'm 5'2", so I'm short. And everybody was like stepping over this log, and I went to climb. I had a debate. Do I go under this or do I go over it? And to go over it, it was very much swinging my entire body over the log. And I said, that's why I go slower, because what everybody else can just step over and move around, I have to heave myself up over. It's quite funny. The videos actually, it makes me giggle every time I see it.
Video. Yes.
So, and I think in midlife, it's really important to remember too that hiking is not a race. I have learned that. I like the adventure. I like the challenge. I like saying, yes, I did it. Sometimes I am pressed for time if I only have a weekend. One of my hiking partners is a teacher, so she has very limited time to hike. So it's not a race, because you miss a lot of really cool stuff. When you're just, I want to point A to point B and I'm going to go as fast as I can. I went, oh, but look, there's the ocean and there's flowers and there's birds and look at this rock that we could sit on and eat our lunch by the waterfall, because we're not in a hurry to get anywhere. And to me, that's some of my favorite parts of the trail.
And that's exactly why I prefer hiking over other modes of transportation. Because when I'm hiking, I can see the flowers. I can see the rock. I can see the moss. I can see the pretty bird in the tree. I can hear the bird in the tree. You can smell it. Yes.
Yeah, just all of the senses. Mm-hmm. When you are hiking, you use all of the senses. Yes, sometimes it's going to be hard and your knees might ache a little bit, or your legs are getting tired, or maybe your shoulders because of the backpack. But when you stop and you sit and you're listening to the ocean or the waterfall, or, you're listening to the birds, and then you're sitting and nature has this smell, it's so calming for the nervous system. And I think we've forgotten that in the busyness of our world and the electronics and the instant gratification and the dopamine hits from our screens. I think we forget that just stepping back and being in nature and disconnecting from the craziness of the world is just, it's so reassuring to know there's still beauty out there. And it's a beautiful place, and it's so good for my heart. I highly recommend it. Like I said, even if it's just go out and hike 2 or 3 kilometers, find somewhere where you can just sit and enjoy and relax and stay as long until you feel your nervous system calm down, and then go home again. Best thing in the world.
I think of it like a mini adventure when I go out just for those short little day hikes, like even 30 minutes in the forest. I have a couple of parks that are close to home, like a state forest is really close to me. And there's a couple of they're shortish hiking trails, but you get out there and you get surrounded by the trees, and it's like this mini adventure. It's so beautiful just to get out there, even reset for 30 minutes and you come back out and it's just a whole different world and atmosphere and mindset. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
And I don't think you realize it until you start doing it.
Yes.
And one thing
Agreed.
I warn people, it's highly addictive.
Yes.
Highly.
Yes.
Where I started was, I'm just going to go on some hikes. I'm just going to do one overnight. I think I'm going to do a weekend. What's the longest hike I can get away with?
What's the next one? And now I bet you, just like me, all of your holidays are centered around, okay, where can we go hiking? What can we go see? Yes. Where can we go see it? It's got nothing to do with the city. It has everything to do with nature and the outdoors. Yeah. It's really a good addiction. Really one of those good addictions.
Yes. Yeah. Hiking is, but a lot of people say, oh, at least it's an inexpensive hobby. Sure.
Once you get your gear.
Once you have your gear, yes. So that's a whole other community and a whole other podcast.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Yes.
What do you wish women knew about starting where they are? Do you think we already covered that?
I think the biggest thing is strength is buildable at any age. That's one of my biggest ones. Yes, it's easier to build strength in your 20s and 30s, but it is not impossible to build strength in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. It is very doable. A lot of people think that I'm too old to start. No, you are never behind. It's wherever you are right now is where you start, and you find something suitable for you. You are not behind. You are not weak. You can build strength. And I think consistency, just staying consistent with whatever you're doing, if it's cardiovascular for your hikes, whatever it is eating healthy, as long as you're staying consistent, that's where you can maintain something for life, as opposed to the spurts and stops that we get a lot. So biggest thing, you're not behind, and strength is buildable at any age.
Okay. And so there was a saying that I came across somewhere. We will redo things that are fun and enjoyable. So if it's hard and if it's difficult, like it's good to have a challenge, but you're not going to do it every single day. If it's difficult and challenging every single day, you're not going to do it. But if it's fun and if you enjoy it, it's easier to do that repeatedly. So get out there and do those easy hikes, right? It's important to build those consistency and those steps and be repeatable and enjoyable. Did that make sense at all?
It makes perfect sense. That's why I love instilling humor in anything. Even sometimes when I don't feel that it's humorous, I try to find ways, whether I'm teaching a class, whether I'm hiking with people, it's how do we make this silly and fun? And I have a really weird, quirky side. My motto is embrace the weirdness, because if you can't laugh at yourself, you have to be able to. So I'll break out into song at the strangest of times. You just never know what I'm going to say next. And it's about just having fun and enjoying life. And sometimes we take things way too seriously. And it's really important just to go and enjoy and find things that you enjoy. Don't do something if you hate it. Right. Just because somebody somewhere told you that you should. It's not worth it. Life is too short. We have to enjoy every moment. Remember, adding life to our years. Because what's the point of living a really long life if you're miserable? I
agree. Absolutely. So where can listeners find you and follow you? It's Journey to Wellness.
Yes. So anybody, for those that don't know, the .ca extension is, a lot of Canadian companies use that. And so I try to keep it easy. So my Instagram, my TikTok, and my websites are all either journey2wellness.ca. And it, like you said, the 2 is a digit 2. And that's also the same for my Instagram and TikTok. And then my hiking is healthyhiking.ca. And I just keep the 2 separated because sometimes it's a very different demographic that a lot of people want to watch all the hiking adventures, but don't want all my fitness and nutrition advice, even though I think they would be wonderful together. It's just people like to have it separately. So on Journey to Wellness, especially Instagram and TikTok, you will find that's where I provide nutrition advice. I provide workouts, talking about strength, mobility, any sort of wellness journey. And then hiking is more, I still talk about strength and mobility for hiking. I still talk about nutrition on the trail, but we get a little bit more into, I share a lot more of my adventures and the trails that I'm on and just a little bit more fun stuff through there. So that's definitely the best places to get me is Instagram or my websites. If you want to reach out to me, I can be found at info@journey2wellness.ca. Same thing, that digit 2.
Nice. And I like that.
If someone is thinking about hiking but feels unsure, they're the people I love to talk to because I cannot stress enough, you can do it. With my Empowered Backpacker course, it's an online course that people can go through the course. So they have everything from safety, nutrition, packing, mindset, the whole thing. And that is my goal. I'm convinced I was put on this earth to help women live their healthiest and best life and get out there and enjoy themselves. And that's what I love to do. That's why I wake up every morning.
Nice. Now, so we're going to jump back a little bit and I want to ask you a little bit about nutrition for one thing. So nutrition on the trail, what do you recommend for people to carry for overnight hikes? And then also I would like to touch on hydration. So nutrition, hydration, and let's start with that.
Okay. Nutrition is my jam on the trail. That was my goal when I started hiking because, as I mentioned, when I first started researching the hiking, I was watching a lot of people doing the longer hikes, the Appalachian, the PCT, the GTT here in Canada. And it was a lot of younger people. Mm-hmm. And they were showing like their Snickers and their candy. and I go, okay, at the time I was in my mid 40s. I was like, okay, now I'm 52. If I ate a Snickers bar, I would be asleep in an hour's time. Like that would provide me no energy whatsoever, maybe 15 minutes worth, and I wouldn't feel good. So my goal is to still maintain a level of nutrition when I am on the trail. My teenage boys, they would call it my side quest, is learning everything I can about dehydrating, meals for the trail. I actually have a workshop that I do dehydrating for the trail, and I take full meals. Maybe it's a spaghetti meal that I've made for my family. I will take a portion of that and put it in my dehydrator and vacuum seal it all, and I've got trail meals. And learning different things, whether it's an oatmeal for breakfast. It's determining, because what you're trying to do is ensure that you have enough energy, which of course is calories. Your caloric expenditure is big. If you're hiking with a 30-pound backpack on your back for 7 hours up and down mountains, you're going to burn a lot more calories than you would sitting at your desk doing work all day long. So you have to really figure out, how do you feed yourself for that? Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 hikes, to even day hikes, to figure that out. How hungry do I get on the trail? And really determining how I need to eat. Do I need things like a stove? Do I need to heat something? Can I cold soak? Is this just something I can take and eat out of the packaging? So it's really educating yourself on what's available, what your nutrition needs are, and figuring out, how do you get the most nutrition with the lightest amount of weight? That's why dehydrating is so wonderful.
That's tricky, isn't it?
Unfortunately, a lot of those ready-made meals, the dehydrated meals, are getting very expensive.
Oh, goodness. Yes. I think here in the US, so if we go down to like REI or something like that, one of the dehydrated meals, you're looking at $15, and that's US dollars. So for Canadian, it's what, almost $20.
Yeah. And I can't, if I'm going on a 10-day hike, that's a very expensive, I might as well go dining out somewhere. Right. It can get very expensive. So it's learning how to do that. Sometimes it is, oatmeal on repeat, which, is not always exciting. By the end of a 10-day hike, I'm going, okay, I don't want to see oatmeal for a couple of weeks. And then having usually snacks throughout the day, whether it's a wrap and then having some things that you can do. I actually, just last night, we had tacos here, and I took some of the taco meat and put it in the dehydrator, and I can do taco wraps on the trail. I can cold soak my taco meat, put it in a wrap. That's my lunch, and I keep going. And then I usually have more substance again at dinner. So I have that main meal where it's replenishing my carbohydrates, my protein, my healthy fat, get as much calories as I can. And that also helps me sleep too when I'm in a tent. Get that little bit of comfort. So it's really determining, but everybody's different. Everybody's nutritional needs are different depending on what your physical fitness is, how much muscle mass you have, how tall you are, how old you are. There's just so much. So it's very hard to just say, this is how you need to pack for a trip. It's very much trial and error. And I know that, and I've heard you say this on the podcast, you pack your fears. I think that's always the thing I overpack on, because I think my biggest fear is that I'll be hungry. And it very rarely happens. I usually end up having a few things left over, but I have had a couple of hikes where it's taken me an extra day or two, and I've been very thankful that I have had those just in case snacks and food. So there was one morning for breakfast, I ran out of oatmeal. We had one extra day because we missed a tide crossing. Remember the Bay of Fundy, very high tides. You respect the tides here. For sure, if anybody decides they want to hike in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, respect the tides, because they are high, they come in fast. You don't camp on the beach. So let's just put that. But we missed a tide crossing where we had to cross a river at one of the mouths of the Fundy, and so we had to stay. So the next morning we had this creme brulee dessert. So that's what we had for breakfast the next morning. Nice. And I had a pen and I marked on it. I said, cream of wheat. I said, we'll just pretend. We'll pretend it's a healthy breakfast. We'll go with that. So and that's a part of it too. It's having some fun. And sure, I still have maybe a couple of gummy worms or something in my snack bag where I have a lot of the healthy trail mix. And then there's that 1 or 2 nice little treats, that, because you want to enjoy it too.
I was going to ask you, do you have any favorite trail treats or anything like that? It sounds like gummy worms.
Gummy worm, I usually have 1 or 2 gummy worms per day because I make my own snack bags. I make my own energy bites. That way I can put whatever I want in it. And I'm a peanut butter kind of girl, so I love peanut butter. So that's usually the big ones for me. Every now and then one of us in the group, or myself and my hiking partner, will have, maybe a chocolate bar, the ones that you can kind of break up. They're squares and you have 1 square a night. Yeah. Maybe a little tiny bit of Fireball, perhaps in the evening, something like that, where, it really depends on the length of the hike, what we're doing. But it's about finding balance, because I don't know about you, but when I've gone hiking, when I know I'm getting close to the end of the day, we start talking about food and we start thinking about what's for dinner tonight? What are we going to eat? And it kind of gets you through those last few miles of just thinking about what you're going to eat around the fire or whatever it is. So you have to love it. Yes. Is there anything better than a sandwich on a mountain, really?
Oh, goodness.
There's nothing better.
Right? Oh, it's the best thing ever. What's your go-to after a big hike meal? Do you go for pizza? Do you go for hamburgers? Do you have anything?
Burger and fries. Burger and fries. Yeah. That's one of my things I research whenever I research a trail is restaurants close by.
Well, thank you so
much. And I think you did mention you wanted to talk about hydration as well. Just really quickly on that. The great thing about the Maritimes, you always have water sources. I don't know a trail I've been on where there hasn't been water sources. Even in a heat wave, there's always been something that you can find. We have lots of water here, which is wonderful. Very clean water, always purifying though. Everything needs to be purified here for sure. We also have a lot of wildlife here. And if you know it's going to be hot, making sure that you just have some extra electrolyte. One of my biggest pieces of advice that I see, or a mistake that I see people make with electrolytes, is they almost water them down too much. So they'll have a big 1 liter jug of water and they'll drop electrolytes in and then they'll drink this whole water. But all the water that you're drinking is actually counteracting what the electrolyte would do. So you almost, if you're looking for a really good, if you feel like I'm getting lightheaded or I really don't feel well, I need something, you're better off having a small, like 250 to 500 mils with either a noon tablet or one of those biofuel, some of those electrolyte little packets.
Sure.
One of those in a small amount of water, drink that down within like the first 5-10 minutes. It's going to be more beneficial than drinking electrolytes all day long where you're sipping and sipping and sipping lots of water. You will feel so much better. If you ever feel like you're crashing at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you still have a couple of more hours, small bit of water with one of those tablets, drink it down. It really does help.
So it just absorbs into your system better rather than diluting it. Okay.
Yeah, I learned that on an advanced wilderness first aid training that I had done. Okay. I didn't know it either. I just thought, I just throw that into my 1 liter water bottle and drink all day long. And ever since then, that's what I do. And it truly does work. I would say within 10-15 minutes, I feel like $1 million again and can keep going, where sometimes I get very clumsy and tired when your blood sugar starts dipping. That's been great tips and I love to share it.
So I think that would be good advice because do you carry a hydration pack with a hose or do you carry a bottle, like bottles of water? Or do you do both?
My hydration pack. I definitely like my hydration pack, but I have a little coffee mug that just attaches. So I have my coffee in the morning and that's what I'll drink if I'm putting something like an electrolyte drink or something in it, because I don't want that in my water bladder.
No.
I would prefer that in a cup. So that's what I use for that. But I like my water bladder because I like the hose and I don't have to stop and kind of reach around and try to get that water bottle out of my pack or have to ask somebody, can you reach my water bottle for me? And I don't even have to stop, drink and walk, and it works out well. I like that. The downfall to having a water bladder is you don't know it's empty until it's empty.
Agreed. That's why I like to carry an extra bottle, because when that hydration pack does run out, I know that I have that extra bottle. Very good. Well, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much. And I hope that I'm able to give your listeners just a few good tidbits of information, whether it's, hey, I want to explore Eastern Canada, or that really makes sense. I think I might go try that and not let our own worst enemy is sometimes between our own 2 ears. I'm not going to let those negative thoughts hold me back from just getting out and exploring and remember, building strength, building confidence, building energy. It's any age. Don't let age hold you back. Don't let anything hold you back.
Exactly. And it's just one step at a time. Baby steps. You'll get there.
One step at a time.
Thank you for joining me on the Just Hyke podcast today. Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, is part of your journey from sidewalk to summit. I'm grateful you're here, growing, learning, and choosing to show up for yourself again and again. All right, before we go, don't forget to check out the Just Hyke Trailmate, the lightweight trail tool designed by a woman, me, for women, you, who hike with confidence. You'll find it at justhike.com.